to the coronavirus now. The CDC is working on new requirements for those traveling to the U.S. amid growing concerns of the new COVID variant. Anyone entering the country may soon have to show a negative COVID test performed within a day of their departure. That's whether you've been vaccinated or not. So far, there have been no reported cases of the Omicron variant in the U.S. yet. This comes as the U.S. inches one step closer to potentially gaining a new weapon in the fight against the coronavirus. An FDA advisory panel endorsed Merck's antiviral COVID pill yesterday, which could pave the way for emergency use authorization. So here to discuss all of this is Dr. Lindsey Baden. He is an infectious disease physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital and a professor at Harvard Medical School. He is also the chair of the panel that endorsed Merck's pill, which is why, though I want to talk about Omicron, I want to start with this decision about Merck's pill. It's an antiviral pill. It's something that can be given to someone, I presume, once they've tested positive with the coronavirus, and it would reduce the possibility of them being hospitalized. The FDA advisory panel voted 13-10 to endorse Merck's COVID-19 antiviral pill. It's a pretty close vote. Do you know what the concerns were regarding this pill?
Well, I think that this is a very challenging therapy, and I think that's why the FDA brought this to the advisory committee. And the advisory committee spent all day yesterday discussing and struggling with the complicated issues. And there are several important issues to weigh. One, on the efficacy side, there was evidence of decreased risk of hospitalization or death. And the people they studied were those who were at high risk, those individuals who acquired COVID and were at high risk of progression to severe illness, such as hypertension, overweight, older age, features that we know are associated with individuals who get sicker with COVID and have a higher mortality. And what the data demonstrated was that in some individuals, there was a substantial decrease in hospitalization and in death. However, there are concerns, and that's part of what the panel struggled with, because there are many more questions than answers. But given the efficacy data, the panel weighed those questions very carefully. The mechanism of action of this agent is that it causes the virus to replicate poorly, and it interferes with its replication. Given that interference with viral replication, the virus reproduces poorly, and causes less severe infection. On the other hand, could it cause the virus to mutate in a way that could be more significant in terms of its ability to spread? Could it cause mutations in the human genome, which seems unlikely, but without large amounts of data, it's hard to disprove? And then the issue of the benefit, which was uneven in that in the first half of the study, it was very high. In the second half of the study, it did not show benefit. And so there was unevenness in the data. But overall, the benefit demonstrated, particularly in mortality, outweighed these theoretical risks.
So then, would this be a pill that would be reserved for those who are most likely to suffer the most extreme sort of versions of COVID, the most extreme symptoms? Or would it be something that, everyone could get as soon as they tested positive and they started to show symptoms, say?
So the way in which the current state of the data are those individuals who test positive, so they have COVID, not worried about COVID, and are at high risk for progression for severe illness, meaning hospitalization or death. In that setting, the benefits appear to outweigh the risks given the data available today. I don't think that this is a pill that's meant to make a cold a little less bad. I don't think that's the way we should be thinking about our anti-infectives in general, because that can promote resistance and have side effects with less benefit. Where the benefits are greater, then the risks are manageable. But there's no medicine without risks, not even penicillin. Penicillin has risks, yet we all take it routinely when we have an infection, a bacterial infection. So it's a balance.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. People are always looking for sort of black and white answers, and what you're telling us is, it's not that easy. Not when we got a virus that is continuing to mutate, and we're still sort of learning about. So which brings us to Omicron, and I sort of feel like with this new variant, we're operating in an information vacuum, but not an opinion vacuum. There seems to be all kinds of people, some of them, very well read, throwing in their opinion on what this variant means. We heard from the CEO of Moderna, who suggested that he believed that the Moderna vaccine, or the vaccines that we have right now, could see a reduction in their effectiveness down the road. It's still really early on when it comes to this variant. We don't know very much about it. So now I'm going to throw you into this whole pit and ask you, at this point, based on the information that we have about the new variant, are Pfizer and Moderna booster shots something you would recommend? Do you think they're effective? Do you agree with the president's assertion that we should be concerned, but this is not a time to panic?
So Anne-Marie, I'm glad you raised this because there are more opinion than facts. And what we are witnessing here, including this morning in our conversation, is the speed of communication today versus a decade or two ago. So as information becomes available, we're immediately all discussing it, even if the information is immature and incomplete. What I see in Omicron is we have seen variants. We will see more variants, alpha, beta, delta, Omicron, there will be more variants. So the idea that a variant is now cataclysmic, I think, is a false narrative and is misleading. Rather, this virus will continue to evolve, and we will need to use science to systematically understand the implications of that evolution. What we've seen with Omicron is that from its emergence and sequencing, within days, we were able to understand that it had mutations of concern, that increased transmissibility. The mutations had footprints that suggested increased transmissibility as well as the potential for immune evasion. That doesn't mean it will be cataclysmic. Rather, it will likely be similar to what we've seen with Delta and Beta and the other variants, and it will likely dominate because that's what these viruses do in their evolution when they have an advantage. And our countermeasures are likely to work, although they may have to be applied a bit differently. How we do testing to prevent spread. I'm not sure the testing issue is at airports. I see testing in general because this will be in all of our communities. And we have to have a testing strategy to understand transmission of SARS-CoV-2, of coronavirus, everywhere in the world so we can apply mitigation strategies that make sense. And then countermeasures like vaccines, I think we have to understand the potency of the current vaccines against the current circulating strain. Currently, Delta in the U.S. may become Omicron, and we need to understand how the current immune responses protect against it. It's very likely that the higher the immune response for the original vaccine strain, the better the protection or the less decrement in protection against a variant strain that emerges. So that's the long answer for the question, which really is, vaccinations are critical to prevent illness and severe illness. Booster shots are likely to afford more protection, but may not be complete protection. But in my view, the issue I'm concerned about is less transmission and more about hospitalization. If vaccinated individuals do not get severely ill, then the vaccines probably work, even if there is some modest amount of transmission going on. And that's what we need to be monitoring. But only knowing about this virus for 2 or 3 weeks does not allow us to have all this information. This information has to be collected, scientific principles applied, and then rational policy deployed. But I don't think testing at one place is going to stop the transmission. We've seen how SARS-CoV-2 transmits silently, rapidly, and globally, and there's no reason why a highly transmissible variant won't do the same. We then have to apply the scientific principles of what we know works to curtail any new variant, be it Omicron or the next one.
A level-headed, fact-based answer. Dr. Baden, thank you very much.
Thank you.